Hello, everybody. I am very happy to present today's reading. It is a book that I was testing to see if it could be part of our One Book, One School program. And it is such a great choice. However, we made a decision, so it isn't going to be our One Book, One School this year. However, it's so good. I hope you agree and that you want to find out what happens next after I read it. It is the book Tornado Brain. It is brand new. It's by Kat Patrick, who has written lots of other really great books, but this is her first middle grade novel. And you will get both the prologue and chapter 1. Okay. So, prologue. Myth. Tornadoes only move northeast. People used to believe that tornadoes only move in one direction, to the northeast. But that's not true. Sometimes they touch down and don't go anywhere, getting sucked right back up into the sky. That's disappointing. Sometimes they zig and sometimes they zag. Tornadoes are unpredictable. If a tornado was in middle school, it might get a lot of weird looks from other kids. Its counselor might call its behavior unexpected. Its mom might try to get it to move in the same direction as the other tornadoes just to fit in. But maybe the tornado doesn't care about fitting in, even if it means not having a lot of friends. I can relate because I used to have one friend, but now I don't. It's complicated. I met her during a tornado. It was the first week of kindergarten. My memories from back then are foggy because I was just a little kid, and also my memory is weird, but here's how I think it went. Everyone was at recess, and I was circling the outside of the play area alone, thinking about roller coasters because I was obsessed with them then, feeling my way along the chain link because I liked the way my fingers dropped into the spaces between the links, and the way that my hand smelled like metal afterward. Not a lot of people like that smell. Sometimes I don't notice things at all, and sometimes I notice things too much. That day, I noticed when the wind turbine at the far end of the playground stopped turning. I live in Long Beach, Washington, and it's known for being windy. So windy that there's an international kite festival every August. So when the turbine stopped, it was different. I noticed things that are different. The creepy green-gray circular clouds behind the unmoving turbine were different too. That's called a mesocyclone, which is a word that I like. I don't know if any other kid on the playground saw the twister fall from the funnel cloud that day. I was probably the only one who was looking up, instead of playing tetherball or hanging upside down from the monkey bars, or something. Being upside down makes my head feel funny. I watched as the tornado hit the ground and started bumping toward us, tossing things that looked like bugs, but were really recycling bins. The emergency system was loud, so I covered my ears. Kids ran inside, but I didn't run. I walked in the direction of the tornado. I took my hands off my ears and heard the train sound, far away at first and then louder and louder. The tiny bottom of the tornado got bigger as it collected stuff, pulling up and tossing small trees and even sucking up a utility pole, sending sparks into the sky like fireworks. I was sucked up too, but by an adult. He grabbed me and started running toward the school. I watched the tornado rip out the far part of the playground fence, which is probably the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. "What's wrong with you?" the adult shouted, too close to my ear. An audiologist once told me that I have better than average hearing, so it hurt. If you don't know what auditoriologist is, it's a doctor who studies hearing loss and balance issues related to ears. I don't have either of those things, but still I went to one, along with many other doctors that have ologist at the end of their titles. I cupped my hands over my ears, but I could still hear him shouting, "You need to listen to directions! You could have been killed!" "It's not my fault," I said. "No one told me any directions." I bounced along in the teacher's arms, watching the turbine pick up speed until I couldn't see it anymore because it had a tornado wrapped around it like a big tornado hug. The teacher banged through the doors and we were inside the school, running down the hall toward the cafeteria. Without the distraction of the tornado, I noticed his painful grip around my thighs and back. I stiffened and started to slip from his grasp, but by the time we made it to the cafeteria where all the other kids and teachers were hiding under tables, he was holding me only under the arms, my board straight legs swinging like a pendulum in my flowered capris. My armpits hurt when he finally set me down next to a table in the middle of the room. "Found her," he said to my teacher. I don't remember her name. I didn't like her very much. "Come under, Francis," she said. "Sit next to me. It's going to be okay." "My name is Frankie," I said, crawling under the table. "And I know—" "You gave us such a scare, Frankie," she said, stroking my hair. "I honestly don't know why people think that's comforting." "Don't touch me," I snapped, scooting as far away from her as I could get. She looked surprised at first, and then frowned, and then turned to talk to the man who carried me. "I was just watching," I said softly to myself. "Watching what?" a girl to my right asked. She had braided orange hair with red bows tied at the ends, too many freckles all over her cheeks and forehead, and a terrified expression. "I saw the tornado," I said. "I want my mommy," she said, before putting her thumb in her mouth. Now she looked like a baby. "Is it gonna get us?" she asked around her thumb, making it hard to understand her. "Will we die? I don't want to die. I want to be a singer. Do you want to hold hands?" I definitely didn't want to touch the hand that she just had in her mouth, and I was overwhelmed by her questions. "What?" I asked, blinking. "My name is Colette," she answered. "That's not what I asked." "What's your name?" "Frankie." "I'm scared," she said. I wasn't feeling scared until the train sound got loud enough to rattle the windows, and then Colette hugged me, and I let her without thinking. Predictably unpredictable, the tornado would turn southwest at the last minute and just miss our school before being whooshed back into the clouds. But of course we didn't know that at the time. I found out later that it was an EF3 on the enhanced Fujita scale, which is classified as intense. I didn't know that then either. Then I just knew that I was scared too. I squashed my cheek against Colette's, my arms around her. She was probably the first person, other than my family members, that I'd ever hugged. "If we don't die, let's be friends," Colette said. "Okay," I said. We didn't die, and so we were friends. That's the end of the prologue. And our chapter 1 is next, and it's called Fry Yay. Chapter 1. Fact: in some parts of the country, middle schoolers have built-in tornado shelters. Colette went missing on the second Friday in April, almost at the end of 7th grade. It was 7.5 years after the tornado in kindergarten, and Colette and I hadn't been friends anymore for 2 months. Before any of us knew she was missing, it was a normal morning. My mom appeared in my doorway at 6:30. Opening my eyes and seeing a person in the doorway made my heart jump. "I hate it when you do that," I complained. "Good morning, Frankie," Mom said in a soothing voice. "Time to get ready for school." I closed my eyes again. I'd had trouble falling asleep the night before because I'd been playing something over in my head. And when I'm thinking too much at bedtime, my brain doesn't turn off and go to sleep. Plus, I'd forgotten to take the vitamin that helps me sleep. And then I'd woken up twice during the night for no reason, once at 2:30 and once at 5. It's hard for me to get back to sleep when that happens. Adding it all together, I'd probably had about 4 hours of sleep. I rubbed my eyes with my fists and then scooted deeper under the covers, wishing my mom would go away, but I could still smell the scents that she'd brought in with her. Nice shampoo and disgusting coffee. I pictured a cartoon drawing of coffee smelling, pouncing on a cartoon drawing of nice-smelling shampoo smell. The nice shampoo smell fought back, and it shoved the coffee smell off, and then, "Are you awake, Frankie?" my mom said. "I am now." Lately, I'd been concentrating on using manners, so I could focus on not yelling, that I wanted her to leave, so I could wake up in peace. "Do not yell," I told myself, my voice loud in my head. "Do not tell her to get out. Make your voice match hers." I opened my eyes and I looked at her sideways because I was on my side. "Hi," I groaned, my tired, grumpy, scratchy voice not sounding like hers at all. She ignored it. "It's Friday," Mom said. "Or since it's your early release day, should I say Fry-yay?" We got out of school at 11:25 a.m. on Fridays, so we were only there for 3 hours and 5 minutes, or 3 class periods, and one of them was homeroom, unless you were an overachiever and chosen to take the 0 period. 0 period is an optional period before homeroom, and it's way too early for me. "Uh-huh," I growled, rolling away and pulling the covers over my shoulder. "I'm awake. You can leave now." "You know the rule," Mom said. "I can't leave until you're upright." "Ugh, that is the stupidest rule ever," I shouted in my head. It was almost painful not to say it out loud, but I thought about manners and I counted to 10 and managed not to yell. I threw off my covers and I got out of bed, hunched forward, my fists clenched, frowning, but upright. "There," I said. "Thank you," my mom said, which bugged me. I guess I should say right now that I love my mom, so just don't get the wrong idea. It's not that she's mean or anything, things bother me so really easily, or they don't bother me at all. I tend to have extreme feelings one way or the other, not usually in the middle. Maybe that's why I'm sometimes unhappy. I don't know. Anyway, when my mom finally left, I put on my softest skinny jeans, the ones that I wore at least twice a week. Today, I noticed that the seams were digging against the sides of my thighs, and I hated it, so I changed into a different pair. I pulled on my black hoodie with the thumb holes and, testing out the feeling of that for a second, decided it was okay. The seams of the new pants bugged me too, so I changed into leggings. They had a hole in the knee, but that felt okay. I stuck my long fingernail into the hole and I made it bigger. I shoved my unfinished homework into my backpack and then I went to brush my teeth. In the mirror, a girl with messy, chin-length hair and 2 long bangs, bloodshot brown eyes with dark circles under them, and cracked lips stared back at me. I looked down at my toothbrush. There was a hair on it. I threw it away and leaned over to get a new one out from under the cabinet. While I was searching, I found a headband I used to wear all the time when I was younger. I'd never wear it now, but I tried it on, wishing I could text a picture of myself to Colette because I looked hilarious. But I couldn't because we weren't friends anymore. I left the bathroom, dropping the headband on the floor. I pulled my hood over my bedhead. From the mini fridge in my room, I got out the milk, then made myself a bowl of the single brand of cereal I liked in the world. I checked my Twister Live feed and read about an EF2 category tornado that happened in Birmingham, Alabama, the night before. I didn't check my other social media anymore because I didn't want to see all the pictures of Colette and her other friends. I got my jacket and left. I wanted to ride my favorite yellow beach cruiser to school, but it wasn't where it was supposed to be, so I had to walk. Only a minute or two into the walk, my phone buzzed in my pocket. "Mom, do you have your backpack?" I turned around to get it, At the door, Mom held out the pack in one hand and a protein bar in the other. Her dark hair was in a tight bun that looked uncomfortable. I patted the top of my head. "Don't forget to eat it, please." "I won't," I said, turning to leave again. She was always reminding me to eat. She didn't remind other people to eat, just me. I guess maybe I needed to be reminded sometimes, but it was still annoying. "I don't want you to get hangry," she said. "Did you know that the word hangry is officially in the dictionary now?" I looked it up. "I'm old enough to know when I need to eat," I complained. "Yes, at 13 you are old enough," she said, in a way that made me think she was trying to make a point. "Did you brush your teeth?" "Yes," I said, not totally sure whether I had or not. "Bye. Have a great day, Frankie. I love you." I made a sound and then left again, taking the beach path so I could shout into the wind if I felt like it. I didn't this morning, but I liked having options. I like choosing what I get to do because it feels like people are always bossing me around. The only thing is, the beach path takes longer than just walking straight to school. It's like turning the route into an obtuse triangle instead of a line from point A to point B. Do you know what that is? It's geometry, which I like. I was late to school so often that the hall monitor didn't blink. I left some books and the uneaten protein bar in my locker, which I don't share with anyone because I don't like when their books touch mine, and left a trail of sand like breadcrumbs as I walked down the carpeted hallway to homeroom. The bell rang when I was about halfway to class, and Ms. Garrett didn't say anything when I walked in. All the other kids were already at their desks, most of them socializing. That's a thing I'm not good at, probably because I don't like chit-chat, the word itself or the act of doing it. I sat down to my own private desk island by the window, and I checked my Twister liver, which probably stands for lover, account again. Nothing new had happened since the last time I checked, which was disappointing. "Phones away or they'll be mine," Ms. Garrett said. Some people groaned, but everyone made their phones disappear. Not literally. I don't go to Hogwarts. Ms. Garrett kept talking. "Let's all work on something productive. That means you too, Anna and Daphne. Marcus, settle down now." The room got quiet. Everyone took out homework because the first period is homeroom, and that's what you do. I opened a book called Call of the Wild, which is about a dog named Buck who lives in the freezing Yukon. Sometimes I specifically don't like books that other people tell me to read, but I liked that one, even though reading it wasn't my idea. This lady, this specialist, who's always checking in with me at school, popped her head into the room. Her name's Ms. Faust, and she's fine, I guess, except no one else has weird ladies checking up on them, so I pretended not to notice her, and eventually she left. Ms. Faust was assigned to me, or whatever, so it was her job to check in, but I didn't care. I didn't want her anywhere near me. I was several chapters into my book when Ms. Garrett put her bony hand on my shoulder, startling me. I cringed and I pulled away from her, biting my tongue so I wouldn't say anything she would think was rude. I didn't want her to call my mom. I touched my opposite shoulder to even myself out, looking down at my notebook and noticing that I'd drawn a few tiny tornadoes while I'd been reading. "Sorry, Princess," she said, looking embarrassed. "My name is Frankie," I snapped accidentally. Thankfully, she let it go. Here's some pictures of those. That cute? Again, I apologize. I know you don't like when people touch you, but you didn't answer when I said your name. I strained my neck, looking up at her, because Ms. Garrett is skyscraper tall. Not literally, of course. She kept talking. I noticed that you're reading your book for English, which is great, but I wanted to make sure that you finished your math homework." We only have a few minutes left in the period, and Mr. Hubble asked me to check with you. He said yesterday it's in my backpack. I interrupted, which wasn't a lie. It was in my backpack, but it was also unfinished. I see, Miss Garrett said. She tilted her head to the side like my dog sometimes does. Behind Miss Garrett, across the room in the regular rows, several kids were watching us. Tess smiled at me with her mouth, but not her eyes. A halfway smile, which is confusing. Kai smiled at me with his mouth and his eyes, and an all-the-way smile, which was confusing in a different way. And Mia didn't smile, just stared, which wasn't confusing in the least. I frowned at all of them, and they went back to their classwork. Ms. Garrett opened her mouth to say something else, maybe to ask to see someone else's homework, but the announcement bell chimed, and the office lady started talking. That was unexpected, because it wasn't an announcement day, which is Tuesday. And if we had announcements, they would have been at the beginning of the period, not at the end. "Attention students and staff," the office lady said. "Please proceed immediately in an orderly fashion to the auditorium for an address from Principal Golden. Thank you." Ms. Garrett looked at me blankly for a few seconds like she was stunned, but then she told everyone to get up and move toward the auditorium. Kai smiled at me all the way as he left the classroom with his friends. Confused by how I felt about that, I waited until everyone else left too, and then went into the hall. I watched Kai walk like he was going to wobble over, laughing so hard his eyes got watery as his friend Dylan told a story about some try-hard tourist who had wiped out at the skate park. Kai. He had on dark blue skate pants with cargo pockets and a checkerboard slip-on sneakers, and his shiny black hair looked especially interesting, like he'd been blasted by a huge gust of wind from behind, and his hair had gotten stuck. I could see a scab on the back of his arm, above his left elbow, which grossed me out. Their conversation got quieter. Then Dylan turned around and looked at me, so I stopped watching Kai and stared at the wall instead. You should know that most people think Ocean View Middle School looks incredibly strange. About 5 years ago, when the old school was getting run down, instead of wrecking it and building something new, they just added on. The front part, with the offices, cafeteria, and the math and English hall, is clean and bright. But the back part, with the auditorium and the shop and music rooms, is dark and it smells like old sneakers. I like to run my hand along walls when I walk. I don't like being surrounded by the other kids since they sometimes accidentally bump me. That's what I was doing when Tess appeared next to me. Tall and skinny, not as tall as Ms. Garrett, though. She walked sort of bent in on herself like she was trying to be shorter. Her smooth dark hair was parted on the side, so she had to tuck the hair curtain behind her right ear to make eye contact. Eye contact made me uncomfortable. "Did you get in trouble?" she asked quietly, raising her perfectly neat eyebrows. I stared at them. Eyebrows are really weird, actually. They never exactly match. There's always, "Frankie, huh?" "I asked if you got in trouble," Tess repeated. "For what?" "For not doing your homework." She practically whispered it. Tess talked super quietly, like she didn't want anyone to hear her. I barely could. "I did my homework," I said, which wasn't a lie. I'd done some of my homework. And it wasn't really her business in the first place. But I managed not to tell her that. Despite getting hungrier by the second, I was doing okay in manners so far today. I mean, except when I had snapped at the teacher. But since she didn't get mad, I got a pass. It didn't count. "Oh, okay," said Tess. "Sorry." Mia nudged Tess and told her to look at something on her social feed, and Tess did, and they both giggled. Mia loudly and Tess softly. And I was happy not to be asked any more questions about my homework. In the auditorium, I followed Tess and Mia down the aisle. Tess was half a head taller than Mia, and Mia's butt was half a cheek bigger than Tess's. Tess walked like a normal teenager in her skinny jeans and her gray t-shirt with an open sweater that looked like a blanket over it. Mia swayed her hips back and forth in her flowy jumpsuit, making her long, curly blonde hair sway too. They picked a row, and I sat behind them on the end by the aisle. I looked around, not seeing where Kai was sitting. I did notice Miss Faust smiling at me encouragingly from where she was leaning against the far wall. I wish she would look at someone else. "Move over," a mean kid named Alex said, staring at me. He was always yelling at people. A few times, even teachers. I may have big emotions, but not like Alex. "Make room for other people." "I was here first," I said, my need to sit on the aisle outweighing my desire not to get yelled at by Alex. I really don't like being surrounded. "Here," I said, moving my knees to the left so he could squeeze through. "Whatever," Alex said, shaking his head and stepping on my foot as he shoved past me. "Ouch," I said loudly. He rolled his eyes and didn't apologize. I folded my arms over my chest and slumped down in my chair. It took a while for all 323 students to sit down. Well, 322 today, but we didn't know that yet. The room felt like being on a beach when an electrical storm is coming, like you could get zapped any minute. That's figurative language, similes and metaphors and stuff. I'm trying to use them more instead of being so literal all the time, because people laugh at you when you're being too literal. On stage, Principal Golden held up a hand with her middle and ring finger touching her thumb, the pointer and pinky sticking straight up. It was the quiet coyote. "So lame," I heard Alex say loudly. Principal Golden looked right at him in a way I wouldn't want to be looked at by the principal, and he didn't say anything else. Principal Golden sniffed loudly into the microphone. "Something has happened," she said, her P's making that irritating popping sound in the mic. "This morning there has been an accident. We're not sure about all the details, but one of our Ocean View students is missing." I heard the buzzing of the microphone for a couple seconds before the entire auditorium broke out in whispers. "Did she say missing? I wonder who it is. What do you think happened?" My mind started ping-ponging from the idea of a missing student to the missing kid posters in the bulletin board at Ice Cream for Ice Cream, where my biological father made me and my sister go when he visited last year, even though it was in the middle of winter and pouring rain, and my sister is lactose intolerant. I shook my head to tune back to what Principal Golden was saying. "Investigating. And we don't know anything more at this time. The police are searching the school and want to speak to select students. Rather than further disrupting this already short schedule of day, the administration has decided to cancel class for the rest of the day. If you ride the bus, please see Ms. Taylor in the office for instructions on blah, 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 blah." Everyone got up at once and started talking, except me. I stayed in my seat, waiting for the auditorium to thin out. My row had to exit from the other side because I was blocking my end. Even mean Alex went the other way, and I was glad because I didn't want my foot trampled again. It was 9:40, and I was supposed to be starting second period English, but instead I was going to go home. My stomach rolled with a weird feeling of change. Change is my enemy. "She's not answering her phone." I looked over to see Tess and Mia huddled together in an aisle whispering to each other. "When's the last time you talked to her?" "Last night before dinner," Mia said, spinning the ring on her middle finger. "She wasn't in zero period. I thought she slept in." "That's not like her, though," Tess said, chewing her lip. "Her bag's not in our locker." I leaned forward so I could hear Tess better, wondering if it bugged her that Mia's curls were touching her hand. I brushed my own hand like they had been touching mine. "Is she homesick?" They looked at each other. both with big eyes that reminded me of a certain comic book cat. Mia's blue like a sunny day, and Tess green-gray like a cloudy one. Maybe they felt me watching them because they both looked at me at the same time. "Have you talked to Colette?" Tess asked in her tentative voice. "Of course I've talked to Colette," I said. "I mean recently," Tess clarified. "Like, did you talk to Colette yesterday?" Now she was pulling on the lip she'd been biting. It was distracting. I wish she'd just leave her lip alone. "No," I said, just to say something. No is an easy response for me. "This is serious," Mia said, leaning forward like my therapist did sometimes. She lowered her voice. "What if it's her?" "What if what's her?" I asked. Mia sighed loudly. "Why are you always so spacey?" Tess gave her a look and then explained. "Frankie, what we're asking is, what if the missing student is Colette?" I stared at her without saying anything because that idea didn't make any sense to me. Since I obviously didn't know at the time that the missing student was Colette, and since I had been mostly thinking that it felt strange being told to go home when I had just gotten to school, this was not my normal routine. "Come on," Mia said, pulling on Tess's arm. "Let's go see if the teachers need help." In case you're wondering why I have these wonderful chocolate chip cookies here, I was thinking that, first of all, it might be nice if you grabbed yourself some chocolate chip cookies and some milk and listened to this first chapter reading with the prologue. And the other reason is that my school, this is a reward for reading for this month, and kids have a potential to win 24 cookies delivered to their house for participating and reading stuff. Anyways, have a great week. I am working on a project that's very special, and it will appeal to a lot of people. And I hope that you will stay tuned. See you soon.